On today's session, we're going to review 4 features in this new Spring 26 release for Revenue Cloud. These 4 features, I believe, will have the biggest impact in this next release. And we're going to go over them one by one, how to enable them, how to configure them live, and some use cases. So the first one is instant pricing active by default, edit product attributes within a bundle. The overall new layout for context definition mapping. So that's the attributes within quote entities, order entities mapping, and then any conditional if statements. So we're going to jump right in and look at instant pricing. So I'm going to move over to this next screen, and I'm on this Acme test quote. As you can see, this is already enabled, but we're going to go ahead and go to quotes and create a new Acme quote here. We're going to put Acme as an account. And here, as you can see, instant pricing is already enabled. I can browse catalogs. Okay, let's add this here. And we got 2 there. Let's delete one of these. And so as you can see, this stays enabled. We can disable it, but it stays on enabled as you create a quote. So let's say I want to add a 10% adjustment. It's automatically enabled, and you still need to click save, similar to CPQ, but instant pricing enabled at all times. The way you go about doing that, you're going to go to settings within setup, and you're going to type revenue settings. Then you're going to scroll all the way down, and where you see instant pricing is usually at, right below it, you're going to have instant pricing active by default. Once you enable that, any quote that gets created, that will be set to active and it'll be enabled. So relatively simple to enable this. So within revenue settings, instant pricing active by default. This feature will enable instant pricing on all quotes that are created. So wanted to go over that. Next, I want to go over some new options for configuring products. So I'm going to go ahead and click browse catalogs again. Click this broadband catalog. And then I'm going to go into this broadband bronze, click the gear. And what we see here is the ability to update attributes within the product option, right? So when we think about CPQ and wanting to update attributes, you would have to drill down into the actual product option, click that gear as you see here, and then go into these attributes and then actually select them as you drill in. So now by default, this is going to allow you to actually, we'll call it inline editing attributes within the configurator. And that's a very nice feature that some of us were looking for, and we finally received that. So you'll be able to still add attributes at the parent level, but the actual attributes at the product level, instead of clicking that gear, you'll have the option to set those within every product. So if you're wondering how to do that, we're going to go into flows, and you're going to go into your default product flow. We'll get there relatively quick. You're going to hit that screen element. And what you're looking to do is go to the product configurator option groups. You're going to scroll down in the right-hand panel, and then it says display option card attributes. I left this default as 5, but you're going to click true. And this is what enables that inline attribute selection. You click done. You're going to click save as new flow. Let's call this AGV2. We're going to copy the API name. We're going to type in app launcher, product configuration flows. I already have this set up for the default one, but you're going to select new, put the API name, set it as the default version, and then set it to active. So this is how you would essentially swap the configurator flow to the custom one that you've saved from the template after you have added that Boolean as true for the product options. So simply put, adding this display option card attributes as true will allow you to essentially provide these inline edits for quotes within the product configurator. So we went over instant pricing active by default, edit product attributes within a bundle. We showcased that, and we also showed how to actually enable it. For number 3, we're going to go over the new context definition mapping layout. I believe this is going to be a nice update to creating just overall fields and mapping them to the context definition to be used in the pricing procedure. So as usual, you're going to go into the context definition. You're going to go to your custom context definition, and we're going to go to map data as usual. We're going to click edit here, Click next. And I did add an attribute here. Let's go to the sales transaction item. And so I have priced editable. This is a Boolean. What I'm essentially going to showcase with the new context mapping is custom pricing like you would have in CBQ. So I created this Boolean called price editable. It's input output. I added that node tag here. All right, we can scroll down and I have that tag. The difference here, where you're really going to see the biggest change, is the mappings here, right? So if I select quote entities mapping and I click edit S object mapping and click map, it's going to say new context mapping UI is here. I'm going to click proceed. And this is a really clean way of seeing this. You can always switch back to the legacy interface. We're going to stay on this new interface, and it's going to bring you through the context definition on the side, and then you can do the input mappings here. So I'm going to search sales transaction item. And instead of having that large grid of your context definition layer on the left side and then the actual S object on the right side, and then having all those lines intersecting each other, you're going to have all mapped and unmapped. I've already mapped that field, but it would show up on the unmapped section. So if I go to mapped and I search price editable, right, you're going to see that attribute here and then the actual field. I've actually I went through the product to lookup and then grabbed that price editable, and I have that Boolean set on the sales transaction item. I'm not stamping the quote line item. Let's call it, if there was a price editable field, we will be using this in the pricing procedure by referencing that product to field. So the standard fields, you won't be able to adjust them as you see here, very similar in the old view, right? If you wanted to update any of those mappings, you would have to delete the mappings, query that mapping and then delete it and then remap it. So anything that will allow you to be mapped, it's going to be white here. And if it's not mappable, it's going to be grayed out here. So you can see, you can search, you can go via those lookups and find those fields if you're going to a different object. So I've mapped price editable here. It saved a lot of time compared to looking for those fields on both sides. We're going to go back here because I'm actually complete with that. And we're going to look at pricing procedures. So we're going to do a 2-in-1. I'm going to go through app launcher and go to pricing procedures. And then we're going to select this one and we're going to go to the pricing procedure here. So in previous versions or releases, formula-based pricing was limited in many ways. You can do simple formulas, and it looks like with new releases, every single element is getting enhancements. What we see here is the formula element is actually having a pretty substantial update here. It's going to allow you to actually provide if statements. So you can have conditional if statements here. I've adjusted this pricing procedure to allow for editable price. So I adjusted the input unit price as null condition here, remove that. And so we're only adjusting input unit price when item pricing source not equals last transaction. What that means is this will only fire if it's a net new transaction. So when you think about a new logo quote, you're providing a quote to a customer for the first time, this list operator will run and the formulas inside will run as well. If this was a renewal or an amendment and you had your assets set to last transaction, this would not run. So what I have here is in the out of the box pricing procedure, there was just an assignment element here that says, right, if the input unit price, which is the sales price, if it's null, take the list price, map it to the input unit price. I have here two formulas and they're running in order. So if price editable is equal to true, take the input unit price, otherwise take the list price. And then if input unit price is null, take the list price, otherwise take the input unit price, and then map that to the input unit price. So essentially what I tried doing here is replicating CBQ editable price. We've done this multiple ways already. This one is pretty neat. So if I did clear out that custom price that I added, it's going to revert back to list price. I'm able to do this all in one formula element as opposed to having different list operators. So it's going to run through this and it's going to evaluate both formulas and then fire that. So I'm going to show you what that looks like here by switching back to that Acme test quote. And we'll wait here for this to load. Give this a hard refresh. And so if I click into this product, so click view, I actually have this set to true. out of the box, you really wouldn't be able to set that price if there is a list price being set automatically. So I have this list price, and because I have that set to true, this is going to run. So if I click this and into the sales price and I say, hey, I want this to actually be $13, as you can see, we're getting that calculated correctly with that 10% discount. So it's essentially, you can do a comparative analysis on what the actual list price is coming in at. And if your organization has some type of ability for certain sales users to override pricing, you can make that analysis and say, hey, this was the original price was list at $5, and then there was an override at $13. And so this will naturally take that price that the user is putting in because it's controlled at the product level, similar to CPQ as well. Now, if I clear this, the sales price automatically takes the list price because of that second formula here. If it's null, take the list price, otherwise take the input unit price, and then so it forces that in there. And so I nulled that out and it automatically took that list price, bringing it back to that $5. So I click save, and there we go. And so this is just a neat way of saving on elements that you're using here. We're able to use two formulas, two if statements. It's not quite the same as price rules in CPQ with the if statement, but we're getting there, and this is a really good way to use this, and just wanted to showcase the if statement and the capability. So thank you very much. Have a good day.